Hello and welcome back to Shulchan HaRav. We continue in Hilchos Netilas Yadaim, Siman Kuf Samach, and we pick it up with Sif Tes Zayin. Shir Hamam Shenotim Mehem Yadaim, the amount of water required to be able to wash your hands, he loik pakas me'revias leg, can be no less than 1/4 of a leg, and that's about 3 ounces. Um, Today we don't really. He's going to talk about some things that are probably not going to get to us because we have Baruch Hashem an abundance of water in most situations, unless someone's in a, maybe camping or traveling or some other situation where water is not easily accessible, and some of these things might be applied. But in general, at your home, you're washing with way more than a revius. Those cups that you buy in the stores, they hold way more than 3 ounces. It's probably like, I don't know, 8 ounces or something. So you have to have at least a quarter of a leg. That's also the Torah requirement for water for toiveling vessels. All you have to have is make sure that this revius of water is in the vessel that you're washing from. You don't have to pour all the water on your hands unless you want to do it in one shot, which again, this is not really applicable. We just pour out the 3 times on your hand or 2 times on your hands, and it's way more than the revias in each pouring. Which is what we do. We pour first pouring and then we pour second pouring. You only need the amount of water that would cover the section of the hand that needs to be washed, which is just the finger part, really. Which I think we'll get to that later. The water that still remains in the kli after you've washed, someone else could use that water if there's enough left, even though there's not a full revius, as long as there's enough to cover the hand. They come from the remainder of tahara, of water that was used for washing, which was already revius. When the first guy washed, there was already revius. Like we said, you don't have to pour the whole revius on your hand at once, as long as there was revius in the kli when you started. It's only if both people are coming to wash at the same time. They wash one after the next. The remaining water of purification from the first guy is good enough. The tar yada sheni, the revius for the second guy, if it's less than revius, as long as they're going like right after the next. Some say that some say that the remaining water does not help for the second person, unless it comes down in one stream, from the first guy to the second guy. For example, the first guy stretches out his hand to wash, al yadav, and after it goes over his hands, then the second guy puts his hand out, from that below the hands of the first guy, and the stream goes down off the hands of the first guy, and then to the hands of the second guy. And then both of their hands are pure, even though you have less than a revius in the kli, before it gets to the hands of the second guy, because you're pouring. Tahiris, they're still usable. They're purified for eating, because they come from the remainder of that which started out as being tar. It's only when the second guy puts his hands very near to the first guy. Then it's like one hand. If the second person's hands are too far away from the first guy, then the second guy cannot be yaitz with his washing, because then it's like he's washing from the washed water, the washing water, which is possible. Even if that was a full revius, it would be possible. Like we've talked about earlier, work has been done with it. We spoke about earlier. And even when their hands are close enough to each other, it's still not permissible. Only if they both had in mind to wash in this manner before they started, through the stream that flows off the first guy to the second guy. Then it's considered like one set of hands in the entire process. If the second guy didn't stretch out his hand until after the first guy started to wash his hands. However, if the first guy had in mind only to wash for himself, And then after the first guy started, then the second guy's hands were already stretched out, below the first guy. It is not considered one hand, and therefore, if the stream does not go on the second guy's hand as a revius from the first guy and second guy in one revius in one shot, then the second guy's hand become tameh from the water rishon that's flowing off the first guy's hands. He's got to now dry his hands. The second guy, he's got to dry his hands and wash again. And even if the entire revius came off in one shot, he still has to rewash his hands. He does not have to dry them. That's the only difference. He still have to wash again. The halacha follows this second opinion, meaning you should not be doing this unless people had in mind and that you had your hands out there to begin with. It's got to be like right next to each other, and that's the halacha. However, if it's an emergency, then you could rely on the earlier opinion, to be mekel in a rabbinic law, and where you could you don't have to have the hands out at the same time. And like I mentioned at the top, Baruch Hashem, we have much water available, lots of water available to wash, and you don't have to really worry about this. But you should know that if you find yourself in a situation where you have to use some of these kulas, that there are kulas that you can rely upon. Have a great day.